Hi, Dave Sussman. Welcome back to Whiskey Politics. And I'm very pleased to be here at Chapman University, where I'd like to introduce everybody to Dr. Mark Skousen, who is going to be and is the producer of this year's FreedomFest in Las Vegas. Welcome. How are you today?
So what is whiskey politics? What does that mean?
Whiskey Politics is a name for our podcast that was created before the election during a time when really, quite frankly, to follow politics, you needed a drink.
That makes sense. I agree with that. In fact, you know, at Freedom Fest, we do cover politics, of course. And in fact, we had Donald Trump several years ago, and he was a riot. You know, freedom it's much more than politics and money and so forth, money and power. It's also philosophy and history and science and technology and healthy living and film festival and so on. It really is a Renaissance gathering, and it's very exciting, and this is why nobody's ever bored at Freedom Fest. Nobody's ever saying, oh, man, I got to get out of here and do some work and so on. They are engaged right from the beginning. We have like 10 breakout sessions all at once, so nobody's ever choosing. The biggest problem is choice, you know, because
Right.
you can only attend one thing at a time, so you have couples splitting up and people getting recordings and so forth so that they can cover everything. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is. And I've been to Freedom Fest. And for those folks that haven't been to Freedom Fest, how does it compare to other conferences, whether it's Politicon or CPAC or other conferences that you can find across the country? How is Freedom Fest different?
Well, and I think one of the reasons is that we go beyond politics. And so we have a financial component, for example. These other conferences don't give investment advice, but financial freedom is part of freedom.
Right.
And in fact, without wealth, how can you really maximize your freedom? You need that choice. And we also choose Las Vegas purposely because it is beyond, by far the most libertarian of cities, even though it's run by the unions. But you still have a lot of choice of what you can do. And it's not just the old Las Vegas, which is gambling and sex and that sort of thing, but it's now first-class restaurants, first-class entertainment. They even have a museum there. Art museum. They have great rides and things like that. There's so much choice in the things that you can do at Freedom Fest. And in fact, Oscar Goodman, who's the mayor, former mayor of Las
Right.
Vegas, and his wife is a current mayor, he thinks Freedom Fest is great. He says, you bring an intellectual feast to the world's entertainment capital. And so we like to think that we are very different than just the political type of things that you get at CPAC and these other conferences that focus only on politics. Yes, we
Right.
cover it, but it's not something that we would dwell on because people have very broad interests. And so we get a real mixture of people who come to Freedom Fest. It's just not an all-male society that's interested in science or what technology or what have you, but arts and music and dance and healthy living, the film festival. A lot of these things are there that people who normally aren't political junkies would be attracted to.
It gets a lot of varied people from different backgrounds. And one of the things that I noticed is that you do have a lot of folks that are political minded. You have a lot of folks that are freedom minded. I think it's free markets, free minds. And this year, you're focusing on free enterprise. And obviously, as a doctor with, you're as a professor here at Chapman University in economics and free markets and libertarian leaning thinking, you have the captain of the starship, William Shatner,
Yes,
who's
we
going to
do.
be keynoting.
Yeah.
Tell us why you have William Shatner joining us this year.
So we like to think out of the box, and we like to invite people that normally aren't invited to a libertarian or conservative type of event. And so last year we had George Foreman, and I had
Right.
people come up to me and say, well, is George Foreman a libertarian? And I said, you know, we don't know, and we don't really care because we're interested in his story and his entrepreneurship with the grill and so on. I mean,
Right.
he's gone from poverty to wealth, and we want to know his story. So one of the people in particular that was very critical of me of our inviting him said after George Foreman spoke and gave this wonderful speech about his personal life and very much a motivational speech. And he came up and he said, that was a really good move. I was wrong. It was really great that you had him there. And he had one political question at the end. Somebody said, well, Mr. Foreman, what do you think of Black Lives Matter? And he said, you know what? I started off with nothing, in poverty, and I became the heavyweight champion of the world, and I became a financial success. This is the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. So that was his way of answering that question. And he kind of diffused the whole issue. It was really great. And I think William Shatner, the same kind of thing. A lot of people have said, well, is he a libertarian and so forth? But he's Hollywood's #1 entrepreneur.
Right.
And so we came up with this idea of the captain of the free enterprise to play on that. He loves it and is running with it. He's read The Fountainhead before. We're going to talk about some of the discussion points of when does the artist, when does the businessman compromise his principles, and when does he do the deal? It's going to be a really fun debate. He's agreed to take questions from the audience, and he does not want handwritten questions. He wants to speak right to the people at the audience. And then we're going to have a private reception where he has picture taking with people, autograph session, his latest book, which is on horses, by the way. And
yes.
He's a horseman of some repute. And it's just going to be great to have him just there and thinking outside the box a little bit.
Other folks that you've got joining Freedom Fest this year, obviously Steve Forbes, perennial. He's always there. He's going to be celebrating his 70th this year.
That's correct. I was looking at when, because he and I were born in the same year, and so I was looking and it said, gee, he's celebrating his 70th birthday the week of our conference.
Right.
Let's us celebrate. So I contacted him about doing a feshriff of celebrating his life and his work. And he's now given us permission. So the Saturday night banquet on July 22nd is going to be honoring the life and vision and ideas of Steve Forbes. And this is going to be a very special event. John Stossel is coming as the Master of Ceremonies. And we're having a lot of wonderful people who are paying tribute to him, and including Larry Kudlow and other friends of his.
Right.
It's really going to be a festive event, so I'm looking forward to that. But Stossel, by the way, is moving now to Reason TV, and he's going to be there at Freedom Fest the whole time, and he's giving a talk called Confrontation, My Run-Ins with Donald Trump, Ted Turner, and other central planners. And he's going to show video clips of his confrontations, including Ted Turner when he walked out on Stossel in a particular interview. So that's going to be a lot
John
of fun.
Stossel's very popular there. He's fantastic. And with his books and everything that he's written about over the years and going back to ABC TV, he always gets a great crowd.
We have a lot of Fox News people. We have Greg Gutfeld coming, the firebrand of the Five. He considers himself a libertarian.
He is.
We have Kennedy coming, and she's supposed to be our judge in the mock trial, which, by the way, is on the police on trial. Every year we have a mock trial with a judge, prosecuting, defending attorney, star witnesses, C-SPAN coverage. It's always our most popular event. And so we have it's a wonderful discussion, debate on various issues, and Police on Trial is our one that we're doing this year.
Last night I was at an event and I met with Larry Elder, and he's going to be there this year.
That's right. Larry Elder is coming, as well as Michael Medved.
Right.
Larry is great on a lot of minority issues, and especially Black Lives Matter, that issue, as well as the police on trial. We think he's going to have a lot to say about those things.
The sage of South Central. He was fantastic. And I did meet with him last year at Freedom Fest. And some other folks that we've met and interviewed with. I know John Funn's going to be there this year. And
John Funn, Steve Moore, Dan Mitchell.
From your perspective, and this is one of the reasons that really wanted to meet with you as you're producing this event, is you're not coming from a political perspective. You're coming from an economic perspective. Free markets, free minds, libertarian leaning. You teach this stuff. You're teaching America's youth here at Chapman University.
Correct.
When you're not here, I believe you're a professor at Columbia, is it?
I have been. Yeah,
okay.
Some time ago, I lasted a couple of years at Columbia.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But I really wanted to get your perspective on, forget about Ayn Rand and objectivism and everything that we learn from that side of things. But when we're talking about practical economics and the effect on our youth today, what are they learning? Are you getting a sense that our kids outside of your classroom are getting a sense of free markets, what it takes to be an entrepreneur today in education?
Well, I certainly think in the business area they are getting more of that sense, although there is a lot of issues on ethics, and we raise these issues. I'm teaching a class right now called Libertarian CEOs, and so we have case studies of the Koch brothers with Charles Koch, John Mackey of Whole Foods Market in Conscious Capitalism.
He was at FreedomFest last year.
He was at FreedomFest last year. And in fact, we had a Libertarian CEO panel and debate with representatives of all of them except Koch, and Charles Koch himself did not show up. He couldn't make it, but we did have Jennifer Grossman from the Atlas Society, who's the former senior vice president at Dole Foods. So she was on the panel taking Charles Koch's place. But we actually had John Mackey, John Allison, and Bill Bonner, who's with Agora Financial. And we had this real rock and roll debate about what constitutes libertarian CEOs and what are their values and so forth. And it's interesting, at the end of each semester I ask the students, well, which of the four companies, Coke, Whole Foods, BB&T Bank with John Allison, or Agora, which one do you want to work for? And students gravitate toward Whole Foods Market. John Mackey, his conscious capitalism, his stakeholder philosophy of all of the stakeholders, not just the investors making a lot of money, but workers feeling empowered and enjoying the work that they're doing, the community involvement that Mackey preaches and so forth. This is a very powerful message for young people of this generation. They're not into just making money. Right. They want to make money the right way. They want to make money, but they also want to be socially responsible and conscious capitalists. And I think that word is spreading, and John Mackey is one of our heroes. He's co-ambassador to FreedomFest. He has a new book out called Whole Foods Diet, and his two co-authors are speaking this year they're both MDs, and they're going to be talking about the science behind the Whole Foods Diet, the idea of living to age 100 without getting the four major diseases of cancer and stroke and heart disease and trying to think of the fourth one, but there's cancer.
I mean, but my question for somebody like John Mackey would be, the irony is that I wouldn't say most, I don't know what the statistics are, but I would assume that the irony there is that many of their customers don't appreciate the free markets and they are looking for regulatory. I mean, I've seen the parking lot of most Whole Foods. There's a lot of alternative fuel options out there.
Oh yeah.
What I'm saying is that it's that coming back to you teaching and giving a sense of what it takes to be an entrepreneur and risking everything, risking your family, risking your livelihood to start up a business. I don't see that. I come from an economics background myself. You're teaching this. Should I be concerned as a layperson out there that generation millennial isn't getting this? They're not getting it from school. They're getting social activism. They're getting social justice warrior. They're going against free speech at Berkeley, but not this.
Yeah, but that's while they're in school. They have one eye on what are they going to do after school, and I think the biggest challenge for students is, are they willing to pay the price to make a success? And I try to emphasize how difficult it is to be successful in business. And in fact, it's not suitable for most people. And I made this point yesterday in my course. It's not suitable for most people when they get out to work for themselves and start their own business. Eventually, they may follow their dream, but they need to follow the green first, as Mark Cuban says. You follow the green, not the dream. You get to the dream, but you need to get a successful business. You need to become knowledgeable. And how do you do that? By working for other people in the area that you're interested in, and then you can break out once you have established some knowledge and skill and ability in that area. And you don't even know what that is oftentimes. Your major may not be what you end up doing in life. So there's a lot of variables. The worst thing you can do is follow your dream to the point where you're living at home with your parents, and this is the biggest danger, because a lot of young people getting out of college are not properly skilled enough and not taking the opportunity, and they're living at home with their parents just really struggling. That's
paying off a $500,000 loan for an underwater basket weaving degree.
Yeah,
right?
And I go through the degrees they need to take in order to be, I mean, you can write yourself a ticket if you have engineering, if you do accounting, right, if you do pre-med. These are the areas. It's not law school. It's not English. It's not history. You're taking a chance with those kinds of degrees. It's not even in economics. Economics is not per se the same as a business degree. You need to focus on applied economics, if you will.
So you're teaching, you're a professor. Where did the passion come from to invest your time and energy and resources to produce a Freedom Fest?
Well, I had gone to conferences all my life, and I produced some smaller conferences. We had done conferences in the Bahamas, in Beverly Hills, in Switzerland, and places like that. I've attended many conferences, and so when I became president of FEE, the Foundation for Economic Education, in 2012, I said, hey, maybe we need to jumpstart this organization that was one of the free market foundations that got started in 1946. And I said, we need to jumpstart this organization. Let's have a national convention, and let's invite all the free market organizations and think tanks to this convention. And we did this in 2002. We did it in Las Vegas, and we had 850 people there, and I said, wow, this is something that really could get started. So that was the germination of Freedom Fest. Now it's a for-profit, and it's purposely for-profit because we want to focus on our customer, not on our donors. And our customers are attendees, and that's why I think we've been very successful, because we produce a product that they want, not necessarily what the donors want.
Mm-hmm. How many attendees did you guys have last year?
We had about 2,500 people there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really a big success, and we hope to have the same this year, if not more.
Okay.
It's looking really good, and we have a lot of media attention. We have all the think tanks. We have an exhibit hall, which is really fun because there's lots of different groups there. As I mentioned, we have the Anthem Film Festival. A lot of people really enjoy seeing the latest films and documentaries. My wife Joanne is in charge of that. She does a great job. So we got over 200 speakers and 200 breakout sessions. So
and that's one
really
of the things
rock and roll event
that I really think a lot of the attendees benefit from. You obviously have the grand hall, you have the keynote speakers, and you fill up that big hall. But to get really down to the macro on many things, that's the grand hall. But when you go micro, you get into the minutia of things. Sat in multiple breakout rooms last year. You're listening to John Fund, John Fund was talking about the high-speed rail.
Yeah.
Right? It's a random, you didn't think about it walking in there, but I walked out of there with tremendous education, understanding the economic disaster that it was.
Yeah.
Right? And those breakout rooms are usually standing room only.
Yeah, and many of them are. And it depends on what your interests are. And sometimes we don't make a room big enough for whoever's there. I mean, John Mackey always complained he never had enough room for his healthy living sessions.
Yeah.
We're at Paris Resort this year, so we've moved to a larger facility, a 5-star hotel. It's in the middle of July 19th through the 22nd, and of course it's a hot conference.
You don't go outside.
You don't go outside, but air conditioning. There's no change between that and the winter months in that respect. But and the other thing I want to point out is that it's the 100th anniversary of a lot of things going on. 1917 was a very unique year. It was the year that Americans entered World War I, so we're going to have discussions on that. It was the Bolshevik Revolution, so it was communism, the beginning of the Marxist-Leninism revolution, and we're still suffering from that today in many ways, despite the collapse of the Berlin Wall. And it was the beginning of Forbes magazine. So the capitalism. So we're going to have a capitalism versus communism.
So it's Steve Forbes' 70th birthday and the 100th anniversary of...
That's right. For
wow.
70 years of his life, there was only 30 years where, before that B.C. Forbes, his grandfather, started Forbes magazine. And it's always been the capitalist magazine that has talked about and doing lists. The very first issue of Forbes magazine talked about a list of business people, business leaders. And they've always been great with the Forbes 400. So we're going to have a session on 100 years of Forbes magazine with Steve Forbes, Rich Carlgard, the publisher, Ken Fisher, the billionaire money manager who's got the longest running column, is going to be there. And then we're going to do this capitalism versus communism debate with Lee Edwards from the Heritage Foundation and other people talking about who's winning this war of ideas, capitalism or communism, socialism. When you look at Bernie Sanders and the success he's had, it's still an uphill battle. You see what's going on in Venezuela, which I mentioned is not being covered by Fox News and others. They're involved with trivia compared to the 32 million Venezuelans who are suffering terribly, not only loss of freedom, but the loss of their wealth. They're starving there, and we're going to highlight this. We always have a Latin American column, because what happens in Latin America, we got to be careful of. Do we want another Cuba? That's what's happening in Venezuela on a much bigger scale, and it could come home to bite us. And so we're focusing on the real issues. And Steve Forbes is a perfect example of this. Steve Forbes normally comes to a conference, he speaks, gives a speech, signs a few books, and then leaves at conferences. At FreedomFest, he's there all 3 days. And why is that? Because he says it's the gold standard of investment, of conferences, because at FreedomFest, we discuss the real issues that are going on around the world and what you can do about it, being problem solvers.
Right. Best place for people to learn more about FreedomFest and actually register is online. Is it freedomfest.com?
Very easy to do. Freedomfest.com, that's right.
Freedomfest.com. And I understand if they put in, is it a code, they can get a discount?
That's correct. The code is, there's several codes, but the one I have is FS2017.
Okay.
FS 2017.
FS 2017.
Yeah, they can use that for $100.
We'll put that up on the website, and you can get $100 off.
Right.
And attend the Freedom Fest, and everybody should certainly take advantage of that.
And they need to do it quickly because the hotel room rate is filling up, and we have it for I think it's $129.
And that's at the Paris Resort in Las Vegas.
In Las Vegas.
Beautiful, beautiful building. You got the Eiffel Tower. You're right across from the Bellagio. So great. And you've got financial gurus that are going to be showing up. You've got luminaries. You've got folks that are actually having a tangible effect on economic policy in this country right now. You got folks that are working directly with the president.
Well, yeah, we have. In fact, we have Senator Mike Lee is coming.
Oh, is he? Freedom Caucus.
Senator Mike Lee, as well as Senator Congressman Thomas Massey.
Yep.
So we're going to have a representative from the House and the Senate. From our perspective, of a free market perspective, what's really going on.
Fantastic.
So we always have people who are close to the president, close to Capitol Hill, and find out what's going on there.
Terrific.
Absolutely.
Well, Dr. Mark Skousen, greatly appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you,
we
Dave.
look forward to seeing you in July at Freedom Fest.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
All right.